Where does religion fit into your life?
It doesn't. I mean, spirituality.
Yeah.
I think that you look at all the major religions, and there's so much that they have in common. Very like, I almost think that you could zero in on the differences between all of the major religions and chalk up those differences to human error. You know, like there's been enough centuries that with the, you know, the exchange of information, word of mouth, and translating, you know, all of these scriptures, they were written in languages that they've all been translated. A lot was, I think, a lot was lost in translation.
I tend to agree.
And I think a lot was, you know, like the game of telephone.
Yeah.
The word of mouth distorted a lot. I think that, that would probably draw the ire of many, many religious folks, but I just think that it's all very close, and that the differences I would attribute to human error. But I remember when I was still in rehab, they brought us on a field trip to this church of all religions. It's called the Self-Realization Fellowship. And
that's the one in the Palisades, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually the original one.
Yeah.
Is in the Palisades. It was started by a yogi named Paramahansa Yogananda. And we went to this service, and at the beginning of the service, they have a special prayer, which is unique to this place, the Self-Realization Fellowship. It starts out, I think that it goes, Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, saints of all religions, we bow to you all. And it just grabbed me as like everything that turns me off about religion is how it can exclude. And this, just by the very nature of how they started the whole proceeding, sought to include every saints of all religions, we bow to you all. Like that's what I'm into.
Do you think there's a chance we're living in a simulation?
Sure. And I think that space and time, I can subscribe to the notion that these are illusions.
I tend to agree.
Right. And particularly space, because there's really when you say, are we living in a simulation, like that conjures up the notion of an artificial reality, which is
could be like the Matrix,
pre-programmed.
Yes.
You know? Whereas
or something that you control.
Yeah. Whereas I think what my view on it would be is that there's nothing artificial about it. It's very real, the experience that we're having, but it's just not that there's no such thing as space and time, if that makes any sense.
It does.
That there's you can travel through a video game to the farthest reaches, you know, like expansive distances you can cover, when in fact there is no distance. It lives all of that space and time like lives
Within like a
there is
speck
no
of
space
dust.
and
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You know, it's so I think that without considering it a simulation, that our reality, much like the whole video game reality, actually doesn't take up any space or time. That space or time is an illusion in that
Yeah.
regard. That our reality is just kind of a video game that we don't
Right.
know. Now,
Yeah.
with all that said, does that change anything about our reality? No. So
Yeah.
it's fun to think about in a hypothetical sense, but to the extent that you contemplate that, you've completely wasted
Yeah.
all that time.
So what's interesting is this happened actually recently. I was on Twitter and I read this really interesting theory that Elon Musk was even talking about. There's a non-zero chance that we're living in a simulation. I started doing research on this, finding it really interesting because everything we perceive is really just like you have no idea your eyes are actually seeing what you're seeing.
Sure.
It's just all signals in your brain, and that would mean theoretically, if you could recreate those signals, you could recreate reality in your head and just experience that. So I started digging into this. I
and
found it really
it's not
interesting.
just sight. I mean, any
Right,
sense.
anything. So I was starting digging it. I found it really interesting.
Senses can
And-
absolutely be manipulated. I believe that.
Later that night, something happened that the chances of this happening were so slow. I mean, everything had to line up for this encounter, this thing. And afterwards, a buddy was like, dude, I think this confirms we're living in a simulation. I thought, that's so weird you just said that. And I pulled up my phone. And after doing all this research on Twitter, the video I had watched right before that was on YouTube, Are We Living in a Simulation? I thought, okay, that's just kind of weird, the timing of that. But then I got in the car and it connected to a Bluetooth really quickly. And I forgot, like 5 years ago, I set my Bluetooth to You Are Living in a Simulation. And I just completely forgot about it. But
What do you
for
mean
fun,
you set your Bluetooth to?
the
Like,
name,
that's the name of his
the name of this
device.
phone is just You
so
Are
when
Living.
you connect to it, it says connect to
Oh,
you
wow.
are living in a
Yeah,
simulation.
and I just did that for fun because if people are trying to airdrop me things, it'll come up like you're living in a simulation. I just thought it was like a funny little thing, but all of that happening within the same like little bit. And so many occurrences too in my life where it's like when we talk about are things happening for a reason, are things meant to be? There's so much that at least has happened for me that I think the chances of that just are impossible. And stacked like one on top of another that I think there's no way this is just random chance.
I agree. There's a book that I talk about a lot. It's called Conversations with God. Does a good job of conveying this notion of the universe being just one thing, which in its absolute sense is only one thing, and one thing can't experience anything because there's nothing for it to relate to. Like one thing cannot have a sense of up or down because there's nothing to compare it to. So the universe, in order to have experience, divides itself into like a multitude. And that's what we all are, is this one thing
Mhm.
infinitely divided into separate things, for which is described as the realm of the relative, and that it's all an illusion, that really it's only one thing, but the universe has divided itself into different parts so that it can experience itself.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, this is the book Conversations with God does a much better job of conveying this idea. But by that measure, if you look at all of creation as being an exercise in the universe experiencing itself, then it follows that we are all equally divine. We're all equally valuable, equally. And to take that view of the universe, it would have to just eradicate any hatred. Like, how could you hate
Wars,
something?
yeah.
Yeah, how could you be hateful or bigoted towards something that you see as divinity.
Right.